Hello everyone. Today I will explain 5 technical questions from the CCNA exam. First, let's look at the first question. So, for the first question, it asks about configuring a floating static route. When configuring a floating static route, what operation should we perform to ensure that when the primary path fails, it can switch to the backup path, that is, switch to the backup route, right? After the primary route fails, it switches to the backup route. So how does this work? The principle here is that we have two routes, right? Two routes. And these two routes are the same, right? A floating static route is basically 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, and then the next one uses 2, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, and the next one uses 2, 3. So both of these routes will be added to the routing table, right? For these two, we make it so that only one is the main path, the primary path. The first one is active, and the other one is the backup, right? So how do we do this? It's by increasing its administrative distance, right? By increasing the administrative distance, it can become the backup. So, to be correct, the answer is to increase its administrative distance. The AD value, if you increase it, it can become the backup. Okay, the correct answer is D. Let's look at the correct answer is D. All right, question 2. Let me just zoom in a bit here for clarity. Now, for this second question, it specifically requests that we carefully look at this diagram. And it says that on roam, the command specifically show what path interface was executed. After running this command on this router, which of the following options is correct? So for this question, you need to refer to these values and determine which of the descriptions we see here is correct. Actually, you have to look at this for quite a while. So I'll just tell you the correct answer directly. Here, there's a correct answer that mentions the hello interval. I see the default hello interval, which is 10 seconds. And then I also see the default dead interval, right? The default dead interval and default hello interval are used here. The default dead interval is the time after which a neighbor is considered done, which is 40 seconds, right? These two values are indeed the default, so this description is correct. We don't need to look at the others, right? As long as we found the correct one, since this is a single choice question, right? For this question, choose C. All right, choose C. Question 3. Okay, for the third question, it says that after we configure OSPF and advertise this gigabit Ethernet interface in OSPF, by default, what type of OSPF network does this interface belong to? Since we're using Ethernet, it forms an MA network. MA networks are also called BMA, where the B stands for broadcast, right? Broadcast multi-access. The broadcast type corresponds to option C, right? As for point-to-multipoint, point-to-point, and non-broadcast multi-access, those aren't correct. This is a real broadcast scenario, so that's not it. The correct answer is C. Broadcast multi-access. Okay, next question. For question 4, it says, when 2 or more frames come from different protocols, assign point different routing protocols, and then route to the same destination. That is, you see, with different protocols, and then going to the same target. When there are multiple such routes in the routing table, which attribute do we use to determine the best path? Let's see, between different protocols, what do we use to make the selection? We choose the administrative distance, AD. For the same protocol, we choose the metric, right? But here it says different protocols, different routing protocols. So let's choose C. Choose C. Alright, question 5. Question 5 is very simple. It's a comparison between OSPF and EIGRP. This type of question appears many times. This type of question will come up a lot because EIGRP is Cisco's proprietary protocol, while OSPF is open standard, and there are some obvious differences between the two. For example, the definition of administrative distance varies among different vendors, and their metric reference values are also different. If we look at OSPF, it only takes bandwidth into account. And what about EIGRP? It considers both bandwidth and delay. In fact, it references 5 values, but only 2 of them are enabled by default. We can actually customize all 5 key values, right? But that's not what this question is asking. It's not about that. What it's asking is, if we learn different routes through these 2 routing protocols, when the router adds them to the routing table, one route will definitely be preferred and added to the table first. So what is the priority of that route when it gets added to the routing table? That is, what is its administrative distance? So, as you can see here, what is the administrative distance? We know that for OSPF, the administrative distance is 110 according to Cisco's definition, right? And in Cisco's definition, EIGRP is 90. So that rules out the 2 above, right? So the principle for adding to the routing table is that the route with the smaller administrative distance is preferred. So this 90 refers to EIGRP, right? The correct answer to this question is B. Let's look at the correct answer. Choose B. Alright, submit. If you want to learn Cisco technologies or get access to Cisco question banks, please send me a private message or you can leave a comment below the video for technical discussions.